The sun had barely risen over Mushin, Lagos, when the voice of Mom Nkechi echoed through the compound as she fried her early morning akara. The smell of palm oil and smoke mingled with the scent of wet sand. As the early dew began to dry off the concrete corridor of the compound, it was one of those bustling face me I face you compounds where everyone knew everybody's business before even brushing their teeth. In one of the rooms, barely larger than a kiosk, lived Ifeoma and her widowed mother, Mama Ifeoma. Just across the corridor lived Adaze and her parents, both traders who sold smoked fish in Oyingbo Market. The two girls had grown up like twin beans from the same pod, born 3 months apart. They shared not just clothes and food, but laughter, pain, and secrets. From when they were toddlers learning how to fetch water with leaking buckets to teenage girls plaiting each other's hair with thread and coconut oil, their bond had only grown stronger with time. Neighbors would shake their heads and say, "These two, no one spirit dem carry come this life." Whether it was fetching water, doing chores, or attending church vigils at the local Pentecostal church, the two were inseparable. Ifeoma was the calm one. She was gentle, the type of girl who preferred to listen than talk, and would rather walk away from trouble than enter it. She was not the loudest in the room, but people noticed her presence. Her strength lay in her quiet confidence. Adaze was the opposite, outspoken, bold, and often dramatic. She had a way of making people laugh with her quick comebacks and sass. She was the kind of girl who could turn a simple greeting into a conversation that lasted hours. While Ifeoma was reserved and modest, Adaze was adventurous and curious. Their differences made them stronger together. Where Ifeoma lacked confidence, Adaze filled the gap. When Adaze's mouth almost landed her into trouble, Ifeoma pulled her back. Together, they were a force just like salt and oil in Nigerian stew. As they matured into young women, the pressures of life began to show. Their parents could barely afford food, let alone higher education. After secondary school, both girls took up work in a small salon near Oyingbo Market. It wasn't a fancy salon, but it was busy. Customers came in to braid hair, fix weaves, or retouch stubborn undergrowth. The girls earned just enough to contribute to their homes and still buy little things for themselves. Still, life was simple. After work, they would sit outside, legs stretched on the bench, fanning themselves as they gossiped about customers or passers-by. The compound children would run around them while they picked out rice or peeled a goosey for their mothers. Sometimes they even played Ludo or cooked noodles together using their small electric stove. Despite the chaos that Lagos life brought, noisy buses and EPA blackouts and water scarcity, Ivy and Ada found peace in each other's presence. One Saturday evening, as they braided each other's hair under the guava tree in the backyard, Adaze said, "If I ever make AM for this life, now you go be the first person way go chop the fruit." Ifeoma smiled. "Me too. If I marry a rich man, you go be my chief bridesmaid. Now you go tie my wrapper on the dance floor." They laughed, not knowing that life, like a masquerade, hides its face until the drums stop. Somewhere, fate was already twisting the threads of their bond into something darker. A proverb says, "The same tooth a dog uses to play with its owner is the one it uses to bite." But for now, they were just two girls dreaming under a Lagos sunset, their sisterhood unshaken, their faith in each other stronger than ever. Sunday mornings in Lagos are sacred. The streets wear a quieter look, the markets are subdued, and the air carries the distant echoes of hymns and sermons from different corners of the city. In Mushin, the narrow streets that were usually flooded with hawkers, wheelbarrows, and shouting bus conductors seemed calmer as gospel music drifted from loudspeakers outside churches. On one such Sunday, after a spirited service at their local Pentecostal church, Ifeoma and Adaze joined other young adults at the church's youth fellowship. The small hall behind the church, where meetings usually held, was decorated with worn-out balloons left from a wedding reception the day before. Chairs were lined up in crooked rows, and the ceiling fan made a grinding sound like it needed deliverance. The guest speaker for that week was a young man named Chibuzo, a recent graduate of University of Lagos and a cousin to Brother Felix, one of the youth leaders. Chibuzo had a calm aura about him, tall, with a well-lined beard and skin the color of roasted groundnuts. He wore a crisp white shirt tucked into black trousers and carried a leather-bound Bible that looked like it had seen many battles. When he took the microphone, his voice was soft but carried weight. He spoke about purpose, ambition, and not letting poverty define one's future. He quoted scriptures, but his examples were real. He spoke about navigating Unilag with just one pair of shoes and how he used to study under a bridge because he couldn't afford light at home. Adaze was the first to whisper, "See fine boy way Sabi preach. Not this kind man I go marry." Ifeoma chuckled quietly but didn't say a word. She wasn't one to openly admire men, but even she had to admit, Chibuzo carried himself like someone carved from a different cloth. After the meeting ended and the youths mingled, Adaze made her move. She walked up to Chibuzo boldly and introduced herself, laughing and cracking jokes with him as if they'd known each other for years. Ifeoma, shy as usual, stood a few steps behind, smiling politely whenever their eyes met. But something unexpected happened. Chibuzo's eyes lingered on Ifeoma longer than Adaze noticed. At one point, he excused himself from Adaze's stories and walked up to Ifeoma. "You're Ifeoma, right? You were the one who read the announcements earlier." Ifeoma blinked in surprise and nodded. "Yes, that was me. You have a very calm voice. It made listening easy. Thank you," she said softly. Adaze watched them from behind with a plastic smile. She didn't like what she was seeing, but she said nothing. It was just a conversation after all, or so she told herself. That day marked a shift. Chibuzo began to show up more often at the church. He started joining the youth programs regularly, and whenever he came, he always found a way to talk to Ifeoma. He asked about her dreams, her background, her favorite books. He even teased her once about her quiet nature, saying, "You speak few words, but every one of them has meaning." Adaze, on the other hand, was growing restless. She still maintained her usual playful attitude, still laughed at all his jokes, and even offered him snacks after service. But it was clear that Chibuzo was not paying her the attention she craved. Instead, his eyes followed Ifeoma. His words were softest when he spoke to her. One evening, as the three of them walked together to the bus stop, a sudden downpour forced them to take shelter under a makeshift shop. Chibuzo stood in the middle, Ifeoma on one side, Adaze on the other. He turned slightly, shielding Ifeoma with his body when a car splashed dirty water close to them. He didn't do the same for Adaze. It was a small moment, but it screamed volumes. Later that night, Adaze paced her room like a trapped cat. "What does she have that I don't?" she hissed under her breath. She looked into the mirror and examined her face. She was beautiful, many people had said so. Full lips, round eyes, skin like honey, and a personality that turned heads. But somehow, Ifeoma, with her quiet ways, had stolen the attention of the very man Adaze had marked as hers. In Ifeoma's room, things were different. She was confused. She had noticed Chibuzo's interest, and although she liked him too, a part of her felt guilty. She knew Adaze fancied him. They hadn't discussed it openly, but she could feel it in the way Adaze's voice rose higher when she talked around Chibuzo, and how she always tried to make him laugh. So Ifeoma decided to withdraw a little. She avoided eye contact with Chibuzo at church. She stopped lingering after service and tried not to answer his messages quickly. She told herself it was better this way. Friendship before feelings, loyalty before love. But Chibuzo was not fooled. He noticed the distance and wasn't willing to let go so easily. One Saturday, he showed up at the salon where Ifeoma and Adaze worked. He brought them soft drinks and chin-chin, claiming he was just passing by. But when Adaze went to attend to a customer, he leaned toward Ifeoma and said quietly, "Why are you avoiding me?" "I'm not," she replied, her voice barely audible. "You are. Did I do something wrong?" "No. I just think it's better we keep things normal." Because of Adaze, Ifeoma looked at him, surprised. Chibuzo nodded. "I can tell, but you're the one I want to know, not her." Her heart beat faster. She didn't know what to say. That moment marked the beginning of something fragile but real, a connection forming between two hearts, while another heart burned quietly in the background. And as the rain fell again that night over the zinc rooftops of Mushin, Adaze sat on her bed with clenched fists, scrolling through her phone, staring at the photos from Youth Fellowship. She saw the way Ifeoma looked at Chibuzo in one of the pictures and knew it had begun. What she didn't know was that the seed of envy had already been planted, and like weeds in a garden, it was about to choke the flowers of friendship they had spent years growing. Jealousy is not always loud. Sometimes it creeps in quietly, like smoke beneath a closed door, unseen but suffocating. In the weeks that followed Chibuzo's arrival into their lives, the unspoken tension between Adaze and Ifeoma grew heavier than the Lagos humidity. From the outside, things looked normal. The two girls still went to work together, laughed at inside jokes, and shared boiled corn on rainy afternoons. But beneath their smiles, silence had grown roots. Adaze had noticed how Ifeoma's phone would light up with Chibuzo's name even when she tried to hide it. She noticed how Ifeoma would sneak off during lunch breaks to answer his calls, claiming she needed to buy something down the road. But Adaze knew. She always knew. She began to keep her eyes open, her ears sharper. She started watching Ifeoma the way a hawk watches a chick, not with affection, but with hunger. One evening, after they closed from the salon, Adaze decided to test her suspicion. As they walked back through the noisy market, she said in a casual tone, "Ify, you and Chibuzo day talk well now, Abi?" Ifeoma's heart jumped, but she kept her face steady. "A little. He checks on me sometimes." Adaze smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Good. As he no gree notice me again. At least make he notice my potty." Ifeoma's step slowed. "Adaze, I don't want anything to cause problem between us. You like him, I know." Adaze paused in the middle of the road and looked at her with sharp eyes. "I like am. Yes, but it seems you no send me. Abi, you don't forget the kind pact way we make, say, any man way enter our circle. We go respect each other." "I didn't plan for this to happen," Ifeoma said, her voice trembling slightly. "He came to me." Adaze didn't respond. She just walked faster, leaving Ifeoma behind with guilt wrapped around her like a wet wrapper. That night, Adaze lay on her bed staring at the ceiling, her thoughts boiling like pepper soup. Ifeoma was supposed to be her sister. How could she even allow it? Even if Chibuzo made the move, why didn't she push him away harder? Because she likes him too, Adaze whispered to herself. And she's willing to betray me for him. The next day, Adaze began to change subtly at first. She started arriving late to work, sometimes ignoring Ifeoma's greetings. She would smile and just with other girls at the salon but give Ifeoma cold replies. Ifeoma tried to bridge the gap, but Adaze's heart was slowly hardening. But Adaze wasn't done. She wanted more than distance. She wanted to ruin what Ifeoma and Chibuzo had. She began to plan. The opportunity came the next Sunday, after church. Chibuzo had offered to walk Ifeoma home. She declined at first, glancing at Adaze, but he insisted, and she gave in. Adaze saw them from afar and followed quietly behind, staying far enough to not be noticed, but close enough to see them laughing as they walked past roadside traders and beggars. When they reached a quiet corner near Ifeoma's compound, Chibuzo paused and turned to her. "Ifeoma," he said gently, "I know this thing between us is complicated, but I like you, and I want to be with you. Can you give me a chance?" Ifeoma's breath caught in her throat. She had dreamed of this moment for weeks, but had buried it beneath loyalty and guilt. She looked into his eyes, sincere, calm, and wavering. "I like you too," she whispered. "But Adaze, I don't want to hurt her." Chibuzo took her hand. "We will handle it together." But behind the tree, Adaze stood frozen, her face pale with rage. That was all the confirmation she needed. She ran home before them and spent the rest of the day planning her next move. And when Ifeoma returned, Adaze was already seated on their compound bench, chatting with their landlady's daughter as if nothing had happened. Later that night, Adaze picked up her phone and did something she never thought she would do. She sent Chibuzo a message. "I need to talk to you. Alone, please." When Chibuzo replied and agreed to meet her after work the next day, Adaze smiled to herself. If Ifeoma thought she could take her man and get away with it, she had another thing coming. This wasn't just about love anymore. It was about pride. It was about betrayal, and it was about to get ugly. Lagos has a strange way of hiding storms behind sunshine. The day Adaze set her plan in motion was one of those deceptively calm days, bright skies, cheerful vendors, and the scent of roasted plantain drifting through the streets. But beneath Adaze's smile, a storm had been quietly gathering. She wore her best wrapper and a fitted blouse that hugged her curves like a second skin. Her hair was styled into a neat bun, and she applied just enough lip gloss to make her lips glisten in the fading sunlight. As she looked at herself in the cracked mirror hanging beside her bed, she nodded slowly. "Let's see how faithful a man can really be," she muttered. Chibuzo had agreed to meet her at a small buka 2 streets away from the salon. It was a humble spot, wooden benches, steaming pots of amala and afariro, and a small fan that hummed more than it blew. Adaze arrived first, sat at the corner where the shadows gave her some privacy, and ordered a plate of rice and pepper stew, though she barely touched it. When Chibuzo arrived, he was in his usual neat outfit, simple jeans, ironed shirt, and that quiet confidence he always carried. He smiled when he saw her. "A daze," he said warmly. "You look good." She smiled shyly and gestured to the seat across from her. "Thanks for coming." "No problem at all. I was surprised, but I figured you had something important to say." Adaze lowered her eyes, pretending to be nervous. "Chibuzo, I don't want to waste your time. I know you and Ifema have been getting close." Chibuzo blinked. He hadn't expected her to address it directly. "Yes, that's true." She gave a small laugh, one that didn't reach her eyes. "It's fine. I mean, I'm not here to fight. I wanted to clear the air. You see, Ifema is my sister not by blood, but by everything else. We've been through things together, and I won't lie, it hurts a little, but I want you to know that I support you both." Chibuzo looked surprised, touched even. "Wow, that means a lot. Adaze, I really respect you." "But," she said, dragging the word like a snake across sand, "before you make any serious move, there are things you should know." Chibuzo frowned. "What do you mean?" Adaze leaned closer, lowering her voice. "I've known Ifema for years. I love her, but she's not always what she seems. She can be calculating." "Calculating?" Chibuzo echoed, confused. "She's very good at pretending." Adaze whispered. "She's been with someone before. Not just any man, he was married. I told her it was wrong, but she didn't listen. She hid it from everyone. But I found out. The man used to sneak into our compound. She would act innocent in church, but you should have seen her at night." Chibuzo's eyes widened. "Are you sure about this?" Adaze nodded solemnly, her face the picture of sincerity. "I just don't want you to be deceived. I thought you deserved to know." She watched him closely, and though he didn't say anything immediately, she saw the shift in his expression, the subtle crack in his certainty. That was enough. They talked a bit more, mostly casual things. Adaze pretended to be over it, to be strong and supportive. She even laughed once or twice, throwing in a few compliments to keep him at ease. But in her heart, she smiled coldly. The poison had been planted. By the time Chibuzo left the buka that evening, his mind was a battlefield. He walked down the dusty road toward the bus stop, hearing Adi's words on repeat. "She's good at pretending. She was with a married man. She hides things." Could it be true? No. Ifema didn't strike him as that kind of girl, but Adaze had sounded so convincing. And they were best friends, why would she lie? Meanwhile, Ifema sat in their room, waiting. She had boiled yam on a stove and made a simple tomato sauce. She was smiling to herself, remembering the way Chibuzo had held her hand the other day and said he wanted to handle things together. Her heart was light. She believed strongly that Adaze had calmed down, that things would go back to normal. When Adaze returned, she was cheerful. She dropped her bag, took a bath, and even complimented the yam. "You try for this sauce," she said, eating beside her. Ifema smiled. "I get the skill. You know." They laughed together like they used to, but Ifema didn't know she was dining with a snake. 2 days later, she noticed a change in Chibuzo. He still greeted her, still responded to her texts, but there was a sudden formality. His replies were shorter. His eyes were unsure. The spark had dimmed. He stopped calling. He stopped coming to the salon. When she finally gathered courage to ask him why, he simply said, "I just need time to think." Think about what? She wondered. She sat on her bed that night, restless, her thoughts spiraling. The next morning, while sweeping the room, she noticed Adi's phone light up. A message from Chibuzo. Her hands trembled. She looked away. She didn't want to be the kind of girl who checked her friend's phone, but something in her spirit was not at peace. And deep down, she feared what she would find. The silence in the room that morning felt heavier than usual. The kind of silence that wasn't empty, but watchful. Ifema moved about the room like a woman walking through fog. Her thoughts knotted, her spirit uneasy. It wasn't just Chibuzo's sudden distance or Adi's strange friendliness, it was the way everything felt off. Her heart beat faster as she remembered the flash of Chibuzo's name on Adi's phone. She had looked away immediately, pretending not to notice, but her spirit refused to let her rest. "Could they be talking behind my back?" she whispered to herself. She shook her head as if to reject the thought, but it clung to her mind like cobwebs. She reminded herself that Adaze was her friend, her sister. They had shared laughter, pain, and hunger. Ifeoma had once pawned her gold earrings to buy medicine when Adaze had fallen sick with malaria. Surely Adaze wouldn't do something like this to her? But then again, hadn't her behavior changed ever since Chibuzo came into the picture? The rest of the day moved slowly. At the salon, the customers were many, but Ifeoma found herself distracted. While braiding a little girl's hair, her thoughts wandered back to Chibuzo's soft smile, to the way he had held her hand that day. She thought about the possibility of it all slipping away, and worst of all, that Adaze might be the reason. By evening, as the sun began to melt into the Lagos skyline, painting the streets orange, Ifeoma found herself at a breaking point. She needed answers. That night, as Adaze lay asleep on the mattress beside her, softly snoring, Ifeoma sat up in the dim light. The generator in the compound had just been turned off, and the room was lit only by moonlight seeping through the window. She stared at Adaze's phone where it lay by her side. Her conscience wrestled with her. Don't do it. You'll be betraying her trust. But what if she's already betraying yours? Slowly, with trembling hands, Ifeoma reached out and picked up the phone. She unlocked it. Adaze had never bothered with a password before. As soon as the screen lit up, her stomach tightened. Chibuzo's name was pinned to the top of the chat list. She opened it, and there it was. Thanks for coming again today. I really needed to talk to someone who understands me. I told you, Ifeoma is not who you think she is. She was with a married man once. She's good at hiding things. Each message struck Ifeoma like a slap. Her vision blurred. Her hands trembled as she scrolled down to read more. Chibuzo asked, "Are you sure?" Adaze replied, "She won't tell you, but I'm not a liar. I just want to protect you. You deserve better. Someone honest." Chibuzo responded, "Thanks for telling me. I'm still processing it." Tears welled up in Ifeoma's eyes. Her chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. As the weight of betrayal settled in her bones, her heart was shattered. Not just because of the lies, but because they came from the very person she had trusted the most. Adaze stirred and turned on her side. Ifeoma quickly dropped the phone and pretended to lie down. Adaze stirred and turned on her side. Ifeoma quickly dropped the phone and pretended to lie down. Her body was stiff, her face soaked with silent tears. That night, she didn't sleep. She lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of Lagos nightlife, the faint barking of dogs, distant generators humming, the occasional hoot of a Danfo bus. But all she heard was Adaze's voice in those messages. "She's not who you think she is." Morning came, and with it came bitterness. Ifeoma rose early, swept the room, washed the plates, and even cooked rice for the both of them. Adaze yawned and stretched, surprised by the early meal. "What'd bring this one?" she joked. "Nothing," Ifeoma said with a soft smile. "Just felt like doing something nice." But in her heart, fire burned. She didn't confront her immediately. No, she wanted to watch her. She wanted to see how long Adaze would lie to her face. She began to play along, smiling, laughing, pretending all was well. But beneath the surface, she was gathering her strength. She started observing everything: who Adaze talked to, where she went after work, how often her phone beeped. She even began asking subtle questions. One evening, while Adaze was jesting about a customer at the salon, Ifeoma casually said, "By the way, Chibuzo has been cold lately. You think he's okay?" Adaze gave a short laugh. "Maybe he's busy. You know men, once they get what they want, they disappear." Ifeoma watched her with narrowed eyes. "So you think he just used me?" Adaze shrugged. "I didn't say that. But don't put all your heart in one basket. You never really know people." Ifeoma smiled. "Just like I never really knew you." That night, she called Chibuzo, not to beg but to speak. "Chibuzo," she said calmly, "I know what Adaze told you." There was silence on the line. "How?" he finally asked. "I saw the messages. I had to know. She's not just spoiling my name. She's spoiling your trust too." Chibuzo sighed. "I'm sorry. I didn't know who to believe in." "You knew me first," Ifeoma said, her voice shaking. "You looked into my eyes and told me you wanted to do this together. But the moment someone whispered against me, you didn't even ask questions. You just laughed." He was silent again. "Ifeoma, I'll come see you tomorrow," he finally said. "We need to talk. In person." But it was too late. Something inside Ifeoma had already changed. And while she agreed to see him, she knew one thing for sure. Trust, once broken, doesn't return as it left. And as for Adaze, her silence was over. It was time to confront her.